Good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's coffee chat. Mm. Today, what I have on my mind is hydration. Yes, another chat about hydration. It's summertime. There's lots of aspects to it that I want to discuss. But before I get into that, a quick reminder to click the subscribe button and the little bell icon so that you're notified each time I'm inviting you into my kitchen so that we can have this chat about food and nutrition. I want to make sure that you are invited, that you know you're invited, that you come on in and join me here. And by clicking subscribe and that bell icon, you will get your invitation. Hydration. We're in the peak of summer, so many different aspects of it. I know in previous videos I've shared my tips on how to stay well hydrated if you have a hard time getting enough water. I'll include the link to that video below. And then recently I've also talked about how to navigate all those healthy sounding drinks and to find out which ones are actually healthy and which ones are complete sugar bombs. I'll include a link to that video below as well. Today, what I want to talk about, it's something that's come up quite a bit this past week with my clients, and also I needed in my own life this past weekend. So it's talking about sports drinks. When is water okay? When do you need sports drinks? I was hiking this past weekend. It was super hot and it was quite a tough hike. It was like a lot of a scramble and hike, and so needed to do some different fueling, different hydration. When you're thinking about when you're deciding really whether you need a sports drink or plain water, there's two factors to consider. The first is how long you're exercising for. And the second is how much are you sweating? So it's really a two-factor question. With the length of time, the good general rule, general guideline is 60 minutes. If you're exercising for less than 60 minutes, then plain old water is fine. You don't need to worry about all of this extra hydration stuff. Stick with the water. If you're exercising for more than 60 minutes, that's when you want to be getting into more of a sports drink or we're doing different types of repletion, different types of hydration going on. The second factor is how much are you sweating? If you're exercising for longer 60 minutes, but really it's just like a mild walk, something that maybe you've got a little bit of a little glow going, but you aren't really sweating heavily, then just stick with the plain water. You're fine. The situation that you want to be considering something more than just water is when you're exercising for longer than 60 minutes and you're really sweating buckets. Because of course, sweat is salty. So you need to both replace the hydration, the water that you're losing, but you also need to replace that saltiness, that salt, which in the technically we call your electrolytes. We want to be replacing the liquid and the electrolytes when you're sweating buckets for longer than 60 minutes. You can do that through a few different ways. The commercial sports drinks are one way, and what I mean by commercial sports drinks are things like Gatorade, Powerade, Tailwind. There's lots of different brands out there. I am not sponsored. I'm not working for any of those companies, so I'm not going to get into, which company this versus that. But there's lots different commercial sports drinks on the market. They all have that salt, those electrolytes added in. You can also make your own by adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to 1 liter of water. That's a good ratio. 1/4 teaspoon of salt to 1 liter of water to make your own. There's also quite popular, well, it was really popular a number of years ago and still maintaining some popularity, is coconut water. Coconut water naturally has some electrolytes in it. However, it's a little bit unpredictable just because it's naturally from coconuts, and coconuts being a fruit are going to be variable in how much electrolytes they have in there. So something that can be a little tricky to be 100% reliant on, but especially if you're exercising for, right around that 60-minute mark and you're not like super heavily sweating, the coconut water could be a good idea. Or use the coconut water and add that 1/4 teaspoon of salt to it to make sure that you've got the electrolytes where you want them to be. That's another way to make it like totally standard. Those are some options for adding the salt. Now, what are you doing when you are sweating so heavily for more than 60 minutes? If it's something that is quite cardio intensive and you are wanting to maintain your performance, like you're doing a sport, you're training, something like that, then you want to also include a source of sugar to maintain your performance. So if you're just walking, gardening, dancing, something that, your performance isn't super important, then you don't need to worry about the sugar content. We just need to be making sure you're doing the hydration and the electrolytes. But if you want to maintain that performance, you also want to include a source of sugar. Those commercial sports drinks that I mentioned, they have sugar in them. There's also, you can make your own. There's lots of different recipes out there, but a good kind of general recipe is to do 500 mils, like 2 cups of fruit juice, 2 cups of water, that 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That creates a good ratio if you're making it yourself. Oh, and I just realized that I forgot one other option. So this is an option not for something with the sugar, but backtracking and back to when you're just looking for electrolytes like the salt and water. There's also some tabs that you can buy that have those in there. Now, these don't have the sugar in them usually, or they have a very little amount of sugar that aren't enough for the sports performance. But there's several different brand names that have tablets that you can dissolve in, have a little flavor, kind of nice, that provide those electrolytes. Noon is one brand. Again, I'm not sponsored. And sorry to describe them in a bit of a back and forth, out of order, but hey, that's what these coffee chats are, just chatting off the top of my head on different topics. So in summary, the 2 key factors that you need to think about when you're deciding whether you can do just plain water or you need to change up your hydration is how long you're exercising, that 60-minute mark, and whether you're going to be sweating buckets or not. If you're sweating buckets, you need to put salt in there with the hydration for more than 60 minutes. Less than 60 minutes or exercising for more than 60 minutes, but just getting a little glow on, not really sweating buckets. Plain water is fine. Have a great week. Get out there, be active in this heat, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday morning.